And of course, those are now approved for eosinophilic asthma, mepolizumab and reslizumab, but don't have an indication for any eosinophil GI problem. There is an anti-IL-13 study. Phase 2 data was presented a year and a half ago now, made by Receptos, which is now Celgene. Phase 2 data for dupilumab were presented recently for another, it's an anti-IL-4 receptor antagonist. And that's approved, of course, for eczema right now. And then, let's see, pretty sure those are the publicly available ones that are in the pipeline.
So what are your, let's start with the steroids, and then we'll move a little bit into the immunotherapy, or the antibodies rather, the biologics. In terms of you had mentioned the budesonide slurry, and you also mentioned fluticasone tablet, I think you said, right? So tell me a little bit about those and your opinions on the trials, the excitement, concerns over those.
Yeah, so the fluticasone tablet data, it was a very, very small study, and primarily looking at histology, and it seemed to be quite promising, and so it's hard to for me, anything that's in the pipeline getting that's getting worked on is pretty good, because like I said, the patients are really stuck right now with what they have, but I think it's pretty promising. We just have to see how the side effects work. The budesonide suspension, of course, is much further along, with a larger phase 2 study published and a phase 3 study that's underway. And I think that's also, it seems very exciting. It seems like it works. Their phase 2 study. I was the lead author on that paper that came out in December. It worked quite well, and the thing about it is to get a medication approved for EoE, it's not just the biopsy results. You have to show that it improves the symptoms, and so that was the first study that used a validated symptom outcome measure, and showed that symptoms actually were improved in the active arm compared to placebo, and the response rate for histology, it was not as high as was expected, but it was, primarily designed to look at the symptom response, and had design elements in the study to really focus on that. And it was a very highly inflamed, highly symptomatic group of patients that were enrolled in that. So I think, I have excitement about both of them, and certainly the budesonide suspension is further along right now.
And we had talked about like the homemade budesonide suspensions before, versus the novel viscous one that we're talking about in clinical trial. Are they similar in terms of their formulation? And in terms of what the novel one is versus the types of homemade versions? No, they're different. The homemade version is a smaller volume. Usually the concentration for that is 1 milligram per 2 mils. 1 milligram per 4. So it's 1 milligram per 4 mils. The suspension for Shire is 1 mg per 10 mils, and it's supposed to be mucoadherent. And so, just because you're mixing it, the Respule version, with Splenda or honey, or to make it thick, that doesn't mean that it necessarily will stick. And I did a study now 6 or 7 years ago that we actually did esophageal emptying studies, looking at different, at the viscous swallowed versus a nebulized kind of swallowed. And what was very clear is the longer the med could stick in the esophagus, the better the response you got. So I think a mucoadherent, probably larger volume, which of course we know is going to be consistent, and it's what the people are getting, and you can just drink, get it right out of the bottle and not have to take 10 minutes to mix it yourself. I think that has the potential to really improve things. And honestly, I would probably switch the vast majority of people who I have mixing it themselves onto this formulation if it's approved. Would you switch others, like those that you have on the Flovent inhaler, or even those potentially on just diet modifications?
So for sure, people on Flovent may end up switching because of a cost issue, and if they're not getting good control. I think